The months that followed were a whirlwind, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally in control of my life. I poured my energy into rebuilding piece by piece. The house, once a symbol of betrayal, was slowly becoming mine again. New furniture, freshly painted walls, even a bonfire in the backyard to burn the last remnants of Melissa's influence. Each change felt like ripping away a bandage and letting the wound breathe. But the most satisfying part? Watching Melissa's life crumble. Word spread fast about her lies and betrayal. The emails I had sent were shared, reshared, and dissected by every person in our circle. Friends who had once flocked to her side now kept their distance, whispering behind her back. Her parents, who had adored her for years, were furious and ashamed. She tried to spin her story, but it was no use. The evidence was irrefutable. And as for the man she left me for, he wasn't exactly a knight in shining armor. It turned out he had a history of dodging child support from a previous relationship, and Melissa's financial betrayal put them both in hot water. The secret fund she thought would be her safety net? Frozen thanks to my lawyer. She couldn't pay off her debts, let alone support her new lifestyle. The most satisfying moment came during our final divorce hearing. The judge didn't just rule in my favor, he shredded her in the process. Citing her infidelity and financial misconduct, the court awarded me full custody of the house and a significant portion of her remaining assets. Mr. Langston, the judge had said, "You've been more than patient. This settlement ensures justice is served." I didn't even look at Melissa as I walked out of the courtroom. Her sobs echoed behind me, but I didn't feel pity. She'd gambled with my life, and she'd lost. Months later, I stood on the front porch of my house, watching the sunset. My son pulled up in his car, a serious look on his face. He'd struggled after learning the truth, and I didn't blame him. But over time, we found a new rhythm. He was still my son, no matter what DNA said. "Dad," he said as he climbed the steps, "thanks for sticking around, for being here." I pulled him into a hug. "You're my kid, no matter what. Don't ever forget that." We sat on the porch, talking about his plans for college and life. For the first time in what felt like forever, the future didn't seem so bleak. And Melissa? The last I heard, she'd moved 2 states away. Her lover had left her once her finances dried up, and she was struggling to find a foothold. Occasionally, I'd hear whispers through mutual friends about how she was trying to rebuild, but I never bothered to ask for details. She wasn't my problem anymore. The most poetic part? She'd lost everything she betrayed me for, her lover, her reputation, her stability, and she'd never be able to erase the humiliation of her downfall. As for me, I found peace in the small things: a quiet house filled with new memories, a closer bond with my son, and the knowledge that I didn't just survive, I thrived. Melissa had tried to take everything from me, but in the end, she was the one left with nothing. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. Then, I did what I'd been avoiding all week. I called our son. "Hey, buddy," I said, forcing my voice to sound calm. "Where are you?" He hesitated. "Mom said we're staying with Laura for a while." Of course, she had him holed up there, keeping him in the dark. "Can you meet me somewhere? There's, something we need to talk about." He sounded confused, but agreed. Later that afternoon, I met him at a diner outside of town. Seeing his face, the same face I'd kissed goodnight for 20 years, made my heart ache, but I swallowed the pain. He deserved the truth. "I found something," I started, sliding the photograph across the table. His brow furrowed as he picked it up. "What's this?" "That man in the picture. He's your biological father." His eyes snapped to mine, disbelief etched into every line of his face. "What are you talking about?" I laid it out for him, sparing no detail. The affair, the lie, and the years she'd kept it hidden. By the end, he was pale, shaking his head. "This can't be true." I wish it wasn't, but she lied to both of us. He sat in silence, processing. "What do we do now?" I leaned forward, my voice low and firm. "We fight back." The next step was to strip her of everything she valued. Melissa had always cared about appearances, the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect life. I was about to tear that facade to pieces. I hired a private investigator, digging into every corner of her life. I wanted to know everything: her finances, her movements, her connections. It didn't take long for the PI to uncover gold. Melissa wasn't just hiding an affair, she was siphoning money from our joint accounts, stashing it in a secret fund. And that wasn't all. Her tiny mistake 20 years ago had a trail: love letters, old photos, even emails to the man confirming their plans to flee together once our son turned 18. Armed with this, I moved fast. First, I froze our accounts. Every dime she thought she could sneak away with was now untouchable. Then I went nuclear. I emailed copies of her old letters and the photo to every single one of her closest friends, family members, and coworkers. I didn't add commentary. I let her own words do the talking. The fallout was immediate. My phone buzzed nonstop with calls and texts. Mutual friends were furious. Her parents were horrified, and even her new partner seemed caught off guard by how much dirt I had on them. But I wasn't done. The final blow came a week later. Using the evidence of her financial betrayal and infidelity, I filed for divorce. Not just any divorce, one that would leave her with nothing. I worked with my lawyer to secure full ownership of the house, half of her personal savings, and full custody of our son. She wouldn't just lose me, she'd lose the life she built on my back. When the court papers were served, she showed up at my door, wild-eyed and desperate. "You can't do this to me," she screamed. "You'll ruin me." I stared at her, calm as a stone. "You already ruined yourself." "You don't understand," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for any of this." "Save it," I snapped. "I spent 20 years building a life with you, and you spent 20 years lying to my face. I don't care what you meant." She left in tears. It was over. By the end of the month, the house was mine. She moved in with her lover, or so I heard. I didn't care. I was done looking back. The only thing that mattered now was moving forward. And as I stood in the empty living room, a new furniture set being delivered, I felt something I hadn't in weeks: freedom. The first step was simple: gather every scrap of evidence I had. The old letter I found in her desk, the photograph of her with that man, the voice messages she had left me when we were still pretending to be a happy couple. Each piece was another nail in the coffin I was building for her reputation. Sitting in the holding cell that night, I wasn't consumed with regret. I wasn't thinking about the fight or the bruises on my knuckles. No, my mind was churning, formulating a plan. Something bigger, something devastating. If Melissa thought she could erase me from my own life, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. By morning, they released me with a warning. The officer had muttered something about avoiding further trouble, but I wasn't listening. Trouble was exactly what I planned to bring to her doorstep. As I walked out of the station, the sun glaring in my eyes, I felt a twisted sense of clarity. This wasn't just about Melissa anymore. It was about reclaiming everything she'd taken and burning her illusions to the ground. My hands trembled as I stared at the photo, the truth crushing me like a landslide. 20 years. 20 years of lies, of loving someone who didn't have the decency to tell me she had stolen my life, my fatherhood. The man in the photo wasn't just a stranger. He was the real father of the son I had spent my life raising. And Melissa? She had taken everything: my trust, my home, my very identity, and left me with nothing but the scraps of a broken life. I don't know what came over me, but I couldn't stay still. Fury ignited in my veins like gasoline meeting a flame. I stormed back inside, fists clenched, my breathing heavy. I grabbed my phone and dialed her number, my thumb slamming the buttons harder than necessary. It rang and rang. Then it clicked. "Hello?" Her voice was calm, like nothing had happened. "Melissa," I growled, barely keeping my voice steady. "Where the hell are you?" A pause, then, "It's better if we don't talk right now." "Better? Better? You gut my life, leave me with nothing, and you think avoiding me is better? Where's our son? Where are you?" She sighed, the kind of sigh someone gives when they're inconvenienced. "He's not your son, David. You don't have to worry about him anymore." That was it. That was the spark. I raised him. I loved him. I... The line went dead. The phone slipped from my hand, hitting the floor with a crack. My heart was pounding, my head spinning. I wasn't letting this go. I wasn't going to just sit here and accept this humiliation. She had taken everything, but she wasn't going to take my dignity. I grabbed my truck keys and stormed out of the house. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I had an idea. Her best friend Laura lived a few miles away. If Melissa was hiding, Laura was the first place she'd run to. As I sped down the road, my mind raced through every scenario. What would I do when I found her? Yell, cry, drag her back home? The truth was, I didn't know. I only knew that I needed answers, and I needed to see her face when I confronted her with the full weight of what she'd done. I screeched into Laura's driveway, barely stopping before I jumped out. The lights in the house were on, and Laura's car was parked outside. I banged on the door so hard the frame rattled. "Melissa!" I roared. "I know you're in there." The door swung open, but it wasn't Melissa. It was Laura, looking equal parts shocked and annoyed. "David, what the hell are you doing?" "Where is she?" I demanded, pushing past her. "Excuse me, you can't just—" But I didn't care. I stormed through the house, checking room after room, and then I heard it, a voice from the backyard, Melissa's voice. My blood boiled as I marched through the kitchen and threw open the back door. There she was, sitting on a patio chair, sipping wine as if she hadn't just obliterated my life. And standing next to her, him, the man from the photo. "David, stop!" Laura yelled from behind me, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. "You!" I pointed at the man, my voice trembling with rage. "You think you can just waltz into my life, steal my family, and get away with it?" He looked at me with a smug expression, the kind that begged to be wiped off with a fist. "Calm down, man. It's not what you think." "Oh, it's exactly what I think." I lunged at him, my fist connecting with his jaw before he could react. He stumbled back, knocking over the patio table. Melissa screamed and Laura ran to call the police, but I didn't care. I had years of betrayal to unload, and this guy was my target. He swung back, catching me in the ribs, but I barely felt it. Adrenaline fueled me as I tackled him to the ground. We rolled across the grass, throwing punches, grunting, cursing. He was bigger, stronger, but I had rage on my side. "You think you're a father?" I spat, pinning him down. "You don't even know him. You didn't raise him." "I did." Melissa pulled at my arm, yelling something incoherent, but I shoved her away. "You don't get to touch me. You don't get to say anything. You ruined everything." Finally, the sound of sirens cut through the chaos. Red and blue lights painted the yard as officers stormed in, pulling me off him. I didn't fight back. I was spent, physically and emotionally. They cuffed me, but I didn't care. I'd done what I came to do. As they dragged me to the car, Melissa stood there, clutching her wine glass, her face pale. I locked eyes with her one last time and said the only thing I could: "You've destroyed me, but I'll make damn sure the world knows what you did." She didn't reply. She just stood there, frozen, as they shut the car door and drove me away. But I wasn't done, not by a long shot. I unlocked the door, tired from the drive, expecting the familiar scent of my wife's cooking or at least the sound of the TV in the living room. Instead, I was greeted by silence. Not just silence. It was the kind of emptiness that felt alive, like the house itself was holding its breath. I stepped inside, and my heart sank. The living room was gone. The sofa, the coffee table, even the curtains we argued about for weeks. They were all missing. At first, I thought maybe she was redecorating, but then I noticed the photos were gone too. Not just hers, but ours. Decades of memories wiped away like chalk on a board. I felt a lump rise in my throat as I stumbled further inside. Every step echoed unnaturally on the bare floors. The kitchen was stripped of its warmth. The mugs, plates, even the silly little magnets from our vacations, gone. The realization hit me. This wasn't some spring cleaning. This was something else. "Melissa," I called out, my voice cracking. It echoed back mockingly. Nothing. No note, no explanation. Just nothing. My legs carried me upstairs almost on their own, my mind racing for answers. Maybe there'd been an accident. Maybe she'd been taken. Maybe... I stopped dead in the doorway of our bedroom. The bed was still there, but barely recognizable. The sheets were shredded, scattered across the floor. And then I saw it. a photograph pinned to the headboard. My stomach churned as I approached. It was an old picture of Melissa and me, smiling on our wedding day. But someone, her, I assumed, had written over it in bold red marker. "You found out, didn't you?" I collapsed onto my knees. My breath came in shallow gasps as I stared at the image. My mind flashed back to the morning I found that crumpled letter in her desk drawer last week. It was dated 20 years ago, right around the time our first son was born. The handwriting wasn't hers, but it was addressed to her. "Can't wait to see you again. You mean everything to me. More than him." It had taken me days to process, to even accept that it might be true. 20 years? 20 years of trust, of marriage, of raising a family, and now this? I couldn't even bring myself to confront her. Part of me was still hoping I'd misread it all, that there was some innocent explanation. But the look on her face the past few days told me otherwise. Strained, guarded, like she knew her world was about to collapse. And now, here I was, kneeling in what used to be our bedroom, staring at the coldest confirmation I could have imagined. She knew. She knew I'd discovered her mistake, as she used to call small things like forgetting an anniversary. Only this time, it wasn't something so small. There was a key on the nightstand. Beside it, a card that read, "Go to the shed." I hesitated for what felt like hours before dragging myself up and heading outside. My legs felt like they weighed 100 pounds each. The shed door creaked as I opened it, and inside, I saw what she had left for me. My old keepsakes, letters, trinkets, even my father's watch, sat neatly packed in boxes. But on top of it all was another photo. This one was of her, younger, holding our son as a baby. Beside her stood a man I'd never seen before, smiling down at them with a hand on her shoulder. The resemblance to my son was undeniable. There was a note taped to the photo. It read, "I didn't mean for it to happen. It was just one mistake. But I knew you'd figure it out someday, and I couldn't face you when you did. I'll always love the life we built, but now you know the truth. I'm sorry." I staggered back, clutching the photo, my chest tight and my head spinning. The tiny stupid mistake she made 20 years ago had just torn my world apart. And her revenge? It wasn't rage or cruelty. It was leaving me with nothing but the truth. And it was brutal.